different sectors. I've always been inclined to pick up the phone and to go. And you see the kind of repeating problems as people are seeking to find ways of being maybe efficient, effective, whatever they think is the goal, and they're struggling therein. So, cybernetics in the 21st century. In our complex technological world, do the cybernetics or have the cybernetics do you? Make space for conducive, effective organization. Understand the patterns of communication and control. Understand these patterns of communication and control within dense social and technological forces. How do we open the box? How do we see it? How do we understand it? How do we place a warrant into the pattern of communication and control? What do I mean by a warrant? By warrant is meant a vision and the value of effective teams and effective work. Bring your vision to the table and design around it. Design the patterns of communication and control. Do the cybernetics. Or have the cybernetics do you. I said technology. I am a professor at Loughborough University. I'm in charge of the Centre for Information Management, and a kind of a technological world has sort of gathered around me ever since I did a PhD in computer science. I did a PhD in computer science because they gave grants there. What an inspired piece of genius that was. I found that that world has, in a sense, mushroomed ever since. I remember doing a PhD and hearing the word Silicon Valley for the first time. Silicon Valley, where is that? What is that? These kinds of things. But this world has just gathered force around us. Have we ever made sense of it? Have we ever rationalized it? Are we making sense of it? These remain pertinent questions. Good morning. Today's organizations are intensely technological. This is through hardware, device, algorithm, information, data, and noise. Processes of control and communication are given by rules.
Sorry.
Well,
can I sit here?
You can sit where you like. You're very welcome. Yeah, thank you. Processes of control and communication are given by rules, by tools, by rules and tools, contracts and suppliers, and by compromised participation in user communities. Our modern organizations are not even fully under our control. Half of them are embedded in these systems. So what role for the well-trained, for the skilled, for the experienced, for the caring customer or patient? How do we meet the variety of this intensely technological world? How do we design and make sense of this stuff? So call to my witness stand Martin Heidegger. Heidegger wrote that cybernetics replaces philosophy in our modern age. There's a big statement from one of the giant philosophers of the 20th century. Cybernetics replaces philosophy in our modern age. In a way, this is a challenge. He's writing after World War II. He's disgusted. He's seen technology of the 20th century come to that moment in World War II. 1950s, 1960s, the computers are taking off. He's worried. He makes this big statement, this big provocative statement. Cybernetics replaces philosophy in our modern age, in a way, a challenge. So what philosophical vision do we restore to the workplace to make it work again? What philosophical vision do we bring? And what warrants do we place into the design of processes, communication, and control? That's what cybernetics is. Thank you.
You sound lucky. Nobody has ever before. That's first. Yeah. Thank you, Peter. I'm glad you did that. now two publications that follow that. The first was written from our, there you are, Jim, from our host, Jim. So thank you, Jim, first of all, for allowing us all to be here today. I've no idea how to move the slides on, have you? I dare not touch it because I'll break it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that by just pressing the arrow.
So Jim and I have worked together on and off for thick end of 10 years. Hosted the launch of Intelligent Organisation here some years ago. We did some work on trying to teach people in Arab something about systems thinking a few years back as well. Anything else about technology? Problems with a slide deck on things, anyone? Problems in the morning? Correct? Ah.
There we go.
It's
also a bit laggy.
It's all. Jim, over to you. I'll shut and go away.
Right, proving the master of technology. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about net zero, because net zero is in the news a lot these days. So, see what we can do about it. There's a huge focus on decarbonisation. I'm going to go through these slides quite quickly. I'm not going to focus too much on the detail of them. But basically, what you're seeing here is that between 1990 on the left-hand end and 2022 on the right-hand end, emissions continue to rise. And there's maybe a bit of a flattening off as we get towards the end of that period. Definitely a dip, very big pandemic. But there's not really any evidence that it's kind of all the talk about. Okay. This is what we actually need to do. So if we continue with the climate action today, you end up with the red line that runs across the top here. That's warming of the climate to around about 3 degrees by the time you get to 21 down. What we're trying to do is restrict climate warming to 1.5 degrees right down here. See where we are at the moment, right over the left-hand side. That means dramatic move. Have that. Well, this is a piece from a report by EY, the Federation of International Consultants. Just summarised in the report, current government commitments around the world to decarbonisation versus what decarbonise structure. And it identifies a gap of about 65 trillion. Roughly half the amount that is required is committed by government today. So is that going to deliver a dramatic change to all the previous slides? Practices are really well short. And what's the corollary? Let's assume at the moment, carry on the commitments that we've currently got. But, extract from a report that we're working on at the moment, our climate dating. When you talk about climate variables and hazards, very commonly, wildfires, and we're currently working with this list of possible really widespread set of impacts on the climate. Of course, doing this, we've already identified 30 different so the impact of breeding rate, rising temperature over that period of time, different sets of climate, more intense storms, more intense rainfall. Experienced this myself Friday last week in the Midlands, the rainfall that we had. When I discovered I was trapped in my village, couldn't escape because every road out was cold. I've also just done a couple of trips overseas. I was in Hong Kong in September. In Hong Kong in September, they had really super economic. It actually ended up being most September rainfall that they've ever recorded. They were meter of 3 times their normal. And there were 75 reports of landslide. And the reason that I put that slide up is the landslide in the background, that landslide in the background was in 1972. Mid-1970s, we founded our business on the back of understanding landslides and landscapes, territory to help develop. Thought we understood landslide and we discovered we don't understand it. Evaluate our whole situation. That same week, this photograph is on the 11th of September actually, and this is Dernier in Libya. And that same week, we had a double dam break. This photograph is on the 12th of September, and I've forgotten the number, but it's on the next slide. I've used that famous source of knowledge with the somewhere around 30 million cubic meters of water down valley and down road, one down road and the second down road. An unknown number of lives lost between 4,000 and 20,000. And what I thought was interesting about this, these are highlighted in yellow on the right hand side. Pause, Storm Daniel, well that was the rain. Global warming sits behind that. But then policy errors, finance being steered away from maintenance. And the thought of this possible military damage from ceiling battle. The whole range of systemic so I'm looking at with this is systemic failures by potentially being triggered by the case. I want to say a little bit about data because data runs through all of our understanding. Slide from an organisation called Icebreaker One, run by Andy Starks. Gavin was co-chair working with and he's spent his career working in data sharing stuff and been doing on open banking, how sharing data for basis of saying on this slide, if we're going to make effective interventions for systems that I was talking about, and between sectors, so the set of sectors, running a project at the moment called Perseus, which is about automating reporting of environmental data from small and medium thanks to reporting, SMEs, automating reporting. Place in the middle for this project and calculate the what it also this is also then one of his slides. This shows the kind of data flows that we have built environment. And the only reason for this is just to amplify the comment I made earlier on about and this is a self. That's the background information. At that point, I then turned to what else to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT came up with the question. Yes. Imagine a world where our interconnected infrastructure is not just within, so not just that is the change to civil funding, but a force for positive change. Actually, it's your power, the power of cybernetics, not only with that, but to create turn off. Hi, Abdul online. Good to see a few friendly faces in the room. And so,
Which ones are they?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you what. So I'll give you. I've got a slide because I don't know so many people. So I've got a slide to sort of intro myself on this, and I've got three provocations about. So to run through those. They're on the screen. So this is me. I've been Chief Information Officer for most of my career. So I organised my intro into digital eras. So digital 1.0, where we're going from writing things on bits of paper to getting it into computers. I decided to go to Liverpool for my university education. I applied for my season ticket before I filled in my UCAS form, and my A levels were average, so I ended up at John Moores University. And while I was there, I was introduced to cybernetics and systems thinking through the work of Staffordshire. And I haven't looked back since, really. So cybernetics did something to me that was quite positive, I liked it. After university, did a little bit of coding, integrating HR systems to a pension fund and using Visual Basic 6. So we're starting to kind of get away from the being in data to letting the machines talk to each other, and also worked for GlaxoSmithKline on their global intranet. And then I must have done something right at the university, because they came back to me and said, we've got this thing called a knowledge transfer partnership with government backed initiative. And you get a master's degree and you work for a smaller organisation on a sort of a leadership fast track. So it was at the time called Arena Housing, they're now called Your Housing. They manage about 70,000 properties in the northwest, and they'd recently, two organisations had recently merged, and we used Stafford Beer's viable system model to understand those two organisations and develop a digital strategy for them. We're in sort of digital 2.0 now, so we're talking about how do we mobilise digital, how do we get field services, how do we integrate mobile phones to the systems that we've created in 1.0. While I was at GlaxoSmithKline, I was surrounded by all these PhDs, chemists, and information management department. What are they talking about? They're doing an MBA. And I thought, well, that must be that. I'll skip the PhD and just get the MBA. And which is what I did at Manchester Business School. And on the back of that, thanks very much to John as well, I landed a role as the CIO of Northern Rail. Similar scenario to the Housing Association, slightly bigger, billion turnover, 100 million passenger journeys a year, and two recently merged rail systems in the north of England, and what do we do to understand which systems do we keep, where do we improve? And we're in the era of like big ERP implementation, so we did the first SAP implementation in British Rails, came off some very legacy mainframe systems. And then
off the back of that, went into one of the parent companies, which is called Bellier, which is basically Dutch State Railways overseas investment. We went, started off with 10 people in an office in Holborn Circus. I was on my knees in the morning, putting cabling in and sorting out people's laptops. And then in the afternoon, we bought a bus company off National Express. And they went from being a silent partner in Northern Rail to wholly owning and operating bus and rail services all over Europe. In the 2.5 years I was there, we went from 10 people to 10,000 people, and from a couple of 100 million turnover to 2 billion. This is the era now. It's time to kind of centralize data centers. Cloud is on digital 3.0. Cloud and compute power is growing massively. I went to work for a water company after that, and that was amazing because in bus and rail, you sort of maybe comfortable with some technology on the train. Utility is the full operation that is digitized. So we're talking about, can we remotely control someone tapping on Teams? Okay. Yeah, I think they've muted now. Or stop typing.
Don't worry about it.
So we're in the era of cloud, bigger compute power, and utilities where they're in operation, and we're sort of doing things like let's remote control of water treatment works, the D-man systems really get more autonomy. After Northern also went to Drax. That was really just been talking about sustainability in the environment. We were taking the largest power station in Europe and turning that from coal to biomass. Can be quite contentious in some circles, but if you believe that this is wood that is waste byproduct of other use, then it's equivalent to taking 1 million cars off the road and turning that power station from coal to biomass. Biomass is a living, breathing product, unlike coal. So lots of complexity in the supply chain in terms of getting an end-to-end system from forest to furnace to doing that effectively and delivering the promise of sustainability. That was my last, what I call, proper job. And since then, I've started my own business and I've been doing fractional consulting. I've relocated from the north of England back down to London. Passion for sport hasn't changed. So one of the reasons for doing that is joining the MCC and joining the cricket in the summer. And the other reason is to pursue a career as what I call a fractional consultant, which with the power of modern technology and teams, it's quite an effective way, and all part of my sort of third publication. I'm going to whisk through the 3 publications now. There's a client wall in the pack. 2 of my publications come from work I've recently been doing up until the summer with Jacobs, and the third is more general. Publication 1: how much carbon is enough? We saw the graph, and one of the reasons is we're expending an awful lot of carbon in order to decarbonise. Electric vehicles, new super green cities in the desert, all of which run very low operational carbon. We capture and embody a lot of carbon in the process. So what's the tipping point? I think that. One such example. actually someone on Teams is working on at the moment. I was involved at the beginning of this project last summer. This is NEOM. NEOM's a region in Saudi, quite remote part, very desert, start level with Sharm el-Sheikh. The idea here is this is one project, which is a linear city. There's an industrial city, there's an airport, there's just one project within that region. And my role was really at the beginning, what's the IT function look like? What are the systems that we need to build this city? But it's effectively 200 skyscrapers that are 500 meters wide, 500 meters high, in a line. There's only been 19 of them previously ever constructed, but it's going to be a modular design city. Why are they doing it? They want to build a knowledge center. They recognize that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia perhaps needs to change. It's going to be self-governing. So I guess they're looking at things like Dubai and saying, how do we create a knowledge center and sustain our future beyond oil? The vision is no cars. We're 15 minutes away from everything we need. It's about 34 total size, isn't it? 34 square kilometres, so it's about 1/50th the size of London. It's going to have the same number of people living in it. The operational carbon footprint is about 600,000 tonnes of carbon per year. London's about 30 million at the moment, so really good from that point of view. But the embodied carbon built this 1.6 billion tonnes. So that's quite a business case of payback over however many years before you have offset and say, oh, it's greener than London. So that's my first. Second one is about to do with data. This is another project that I was involved in at the design phase. It's a data center, but it's a pretty big one. It's going to basically link Portugal with Brazil, 72 terabytes per second connection undersea cable. Probably going to be used by Google. Compute power is immense. We want to make this operationally carbon neutral. The biggest carbon and cost of powering a data center is cooling. So we're going to cool this with seawater, but the temperature doesn't stay the same in the sea. So we've got to think of clever systems to manage that operation and keep it neutral. There's wind farm and solar as well. My role was in my team designing the system to forecast and predict the seawater temperature. But in thinking about all of this, I'm thinking there's an awful lot of data. And how much data do people create and what's our carbon footprint from using one of these? And it's huge. Now, 4% of all global emissions. Put it into context, that's double air travel. So we've been saying, let's not print an email, let's use video conferencing rather than travel. But the tech is now so productive and so efficient that we can do more. That's creating more carbon. So what do we do? I think someone on this, because they're doing the carbon data ladder and calculating involved in digital decarbonisation. I think someone there told me that when Cristiano Ronaldo tweets from Saudi Arabia, where he's now playing football, 10 million followers, go on his Instagram account and post about how toned his abs are or whatever. The energy, global energy needed from around the world to manage just that one post would power 10 homes for a year. So, I hope you're not recording this, Teams.
Too late.
The projects themselves are really interesting. I think the construction is really far behind other sectors, particularly with the way that we break it up into parts, and we have many processes around do a design, send it out to sort of build the plan, send it out to tender to actually then construct it, test it, hand it over, operate. So many silos of data, and then within projects themselves, there's different parts of the organisation responsible for different things. Particularly on Neon, there's 3 delivery partners, there's PwC are involved, KPMG, there's the client themselves. It's as political as any organisation, but it is just in these silos of different systems. They don't talk to each other. People want the data to be hosted in Saudi Arabia. They haven't got a cloud. It's just so disjointed and disconnected. I just think we need a complete rethink on how we operate as organisations, particularly on these projects. I think a lot of organisations are in this mess. We now have chief data officer, chief digital officer, chief technology officer. Anyone can use ChatGPT. Like, who is responsible? How do we govern these organisations? We want so much IT security and protect the data and data sovereignty, but do you really need to do all of that? Because if we don't have access to data, if we don't open and democratise the data, then we're never going to move forward at the speed we need to solve some of these problems. We're so worried about protecting IP that we don't create any. And then this world of hybrid work where we can be really productive and work for multiple organisations and share knowledge effectively. But are we really tapping into that ability? Do organisations need to fundamentally change and embrace perhaps a more fractional way of working? So that's me.